Good afternoon, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Kahuna Reads. Volume here a bit. Hello, Lucy. You're up first today. I'm going to wait a couple minutes here before I get started so that anybody who wants to join has a chance. But welcome. Last week or two has been a little difficult. I've been doing the physical therapy for my shoulder, and I did not realize how much it was going to take out of me just for my shoulder. It has messed with my blood sugars. It has exhausted me. But I'm trying. So today, I finally feel like I might be able to get through the entire stream. Hey, Stretch, welcome.
Now you listen here. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. Now go away.
Don't go away. I normally do the reads a little, just dry, where I just I just pick them up and read them cold. But I did look over yours, and I like it. I didn't read in depth. I like the tone of it, and I already have voices for it, so that's going to be fun. But I'm going to wait a couple more minutes before we get started, so that we get people a chance to show up. And hopefully somebody will come in and drop something else they want me to read. Otherwise, I do still have about 3 chapters left in Frankenstein, so I can always do that. So, but yeah, it's been a little more difficult for the rehab on my shoulder than I expected. Hip takes me out when they have to work. Yeah, it's amazing because it's not like, I spend an hour twice a week, but that hour can really wipe me out for 2 days. That day and the next day. And then last week I did some stuff over the weekend and really kind of worked out my shoulder again. In fact, I was admonished by my physical therapist yesterday that I'm already doing too much. Not like I'm going to stop, but I'm about a week and a half to 2 weeks ahead of schedule when it comes to the range of motion. But because I was feeling that, I was doing exercises that were a week and a half to 2 weeks ahead of schedule, and that's part of why I'm feeling. So I'm trying a little too hard to recover. So that's that. Hope you guys have had a great week. It's been a week here. It's been kind of all over the place. But otherwise, things have been all right. Like I said, therapy's therapy. It is what it is. And that's all that it is. You're like Popeye all of a sudden. So, Losi, how are you? Stretch, how are you? How was your week been? How was your weekend last week? Getting ready to go into another weekend here. I have to open the top before I can drink. Doing good. Excellent. How's the work thing going? I hope it's been going well. Pretty good. Work is crazy with the holiday coming up. We're managing. Oh, yeah, because you probably have a lot of orders for people getting ready for Memorial Day cookouts. Bait popped around for coffee late morning, lunchtime. Just had a chill day on Conan Exiles after he went. On standby for work, but didn't get called in. But it must be nice to have a steady paycheck at least, right? I'll be honest, that's one thing I often regret. I shouldn't say regret, that I feel guilty about. It's a regret. That I don't have a steady income. So Mrs. K has to do all of it. So many steaks. Oh yeah, and with the prices going up, it's gonna be some big baskets. Yeah, I feel bad that I don't have the income. Heard about steady, no factory shifts, only the stewarding yesterday. Oh, no factory, huh? Sucks. I'm sorry. Yeah, I've actually been applying for jobs, but ads in less than 50 seconds. Okay. You know what? We'll let that ad run, and that way we can delay a further one, and then we'll start up one after the ad. But yeah, I feel guilty that I don't bring in the money. I do other stuff around the house, and I contribute that way, but I feel like I don't contribute enough. And that's just, gremlins running around in my head, but it is what it is. So, we should be just about in the ad. It says ad starting soon. That first ad always says starting soon, and it takes it like a solid minute or two to get going. Go ahead. Make it fucking easy. Yeah. Not in my vocabulary, my friend. Not in my vocabulary. In fact, I have the HVAC guys coming out on Tuesday to do some work on the AC, the annual maintenance. And I have to clear the area around the AC unit, which means I'll be clearing brush tomorrow. I'll be careful, but won't be easy. And I have a fig tree that refuses to effing die. This fig tree comes back every year. I cut it back all the way down to the root. It comes back. There's the ad. I will be careful. Need a passport and a plane ticket right now. Just so you can come over here and kick my ass. Good luck with that. Mrs. Kahuna just gives me the stink eye, and then that's the way it works. We'll do the work for you. No, I wouldn't put that on anybody else. I wouldn't put it on anybody else, because the backyard. I used to have this service called Poop 911 that would come and clean up after the dogs. We haven't had that since like August. So I'm the one who has to clean up all the crap in the backyard. But because of the rains we had earlier this year, everything's about, a good 2 feet tall. But that's all going to get cut back. But there's crap underneath there. So, it's a whole thing. And I wouldn't put that on anybody. I just got to clear off enough that the guys can do their work. And it's probably going to be a 15-minute job. Because it's not a huge area. It's just around the compressor for the air conditioner. So it's not much. It's going to be a 15-minute job. It's got to get done. And then I know me. And I'll do that and go, well, while I'm at it, I'll do something else. And it'll be an afternoon or a morning of that until my shoulder says, hey, asshole, knock it off. I don't think the airport security would let me bring my machete and chopper knife. No, you'd probably have to put them into checked baggage. But I have a machete and a chopper knife. I don't know that I can wield the machete right now. I don't think I have the strength. I have an axe as well if I need it. I don't think I have it. So probably the way I'm going to be cutting some stuff is with... I have a wood, like a chainsaw style blade for my angle grinder. So more than likely what I'll be doing is putting that blade onto the angle grinder and just and cutting it off. And hopefully I can get somebody, Mrs. Kahuna or offspring number 3, to help me just get rid of the stuff. So we're good. I'm not going to be doing much hacking. That's scarier. But quicker. It's just cut it right down. Just a spinning wheel. There's nothing to be scared of. I've cut through concrete with it. Well, not with that blade, but you get the picture. It's just nothing. Cut through there. The ad break is finishing up. All right. Let's tell me the next ad will be in 31 minutes. We will probably delay that one a little bit. So looks like we're probably back. So yeah, this weekend is, tomorrow's going to be a little bit of yard work, going easy on my shoulder. I promise. Try. Easy. Yes, it was perilous, but the ads have been defeated for another day. All right. So, having said all that, gotten through the first ad, we are going to start with Losi's story here. It is a beginning chapter of something Losi has started. I don't know what the status is of it at the moment. This is the beginning chapter, chapter 00, Genesis. It looks very interesting. So I'm going to interpret it for our viewing audience. There we go. In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovering over the waves. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good. He separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day and the darkness night. And there was evening, there was morning, and the first day. And from there, the next few days, or, if you want to be exact, were spent much the same way, sorting his creations into neat little boxes. Can't say that God isn't organized at the very least. Day in and day out, creating and separating, the seas from the skies and the land from the sea, sun from the moon. Through the seas went the fish, and the skies the birds. On and on it went, and every time he neatly boxed his creations up where they belonged. Every time he said the same thing again and again when he was done. It is good. And the angels on high, his first creations from before even the earth, would all sing out in joyous choir, all in unity proclaiming their praise to God. Our Father is great, and his creations good. Blessed be the Lord, and blessed be the world. And after the beasts of the land were created, one final being was born. In his own image, God created man. A being that would strive and toil and above all aspire. A creature that would seek to know and create just as he had. Made in such a way that he may rule the world and all other creatures upon it and learn from the world that they owned. On that sixth day, the dust from man was formed, and from his first breath God found beauty in him and all of his flaws. And all was not good. For as the choirs once more sang out above the mass, cried out a voice that spoke in defiance. One who balked that man, made imperfect by design, should be seen as their equals. One who refused to bless that which was clearly inferior to them, who the Father had created perfectly. At first it was one. Gradually, his voice was joined by others. What was once one soon became seven, speaking out against man, against heaven, against God. And as one by one they rose their voices against the song of the lambs, one, by their own brethren, they were cast out from the heavens and earth. Now, I wasn't there for none of that. Wasn't there for most of what immediately came after, neither. But I've heard the story told to me on good authority enough times to attest to its authenticity. See, when they all got thrown out, something happened that heaven didn't plan for. They lived. As one by one they were cast out, one by one did they awaken. One by one they dragged themselves battered and bruised from the ground they were now made to crawl upon. Their bodies twisted and broken, their eyes and souls left blind without the light of the Lord to guide them. Their halos and hearts mangled and shattered, left alone without their Father's protection or love to shield them. One by one, they each took time to mourn the death of the angels they once were, and took on new names and steeled themselves to survive, no matter what that meant for them. Leviathan, Satan, Mammon, Beelzebub, Asmodeus, Belphegor, and the last to awaken was he who'd been the first to fall. And thus their new lords speak. The heavens and its shepherds have forsaken us. So come to me, offer your praise, and I will be that which he never was. I will do what he never would. The darkness and evil, the cruel and the wicked, all the vile wretches of his world will be yours, and in yours so too shall they be mine. You are all my servants, and I your master. While I shall rule you, so too shall I serve you. When you bow to me, I shall see you flourish and thrive. Without their light, they think us blind, but I will guide us through the dark, and within it we shall form our home and kingdom. I will guide us and see heaven torn asunder. The angels on high shall be punished and weep alongside their Father's precious creation, and the Lord shall lay broken at my feet, and we shall feast upon his shattered corpse. Thus saith I, Lord and Master of all that is evil, upon my very name of Lucifer it shall be done. And in that realm that ought to have been their graves, they would build their kingdom, known thenceforth as hell. One by one they learned to see with their own eyes through the dark, and looked upon the realm as they stood in. The great empty expanse seemed to go on forever. So naturally the first order of business was doing as they had learned from their father, and creating. Of course, each and every one of them, with their newfound sense of independence, had a different idea of just what hell was, and just how exactly they were going to go about their grand goals, and even what exactly those goals meant for them. So, Lucifer set down 3 ground rules, which they all would obey to keep them from turning on one another. First, mankind must come to them. Temptation and seduction was all well and good, but unless humanity used its precious free will to choose evil over good, to decide to abandon their Creator in favor of that which he denied, there would be no point to it at all. For if they forced it upon them, more humans would be made, and the only people to blame for their loss would be they who fell. If man came to them on his own, it was man's own fault, and man's own flaws that ruined him, and the blame could only fall to man's failings, and if heaven aimed to strike them down for it, then were they not denying the good of the freedom that God had given them? No, for the sake of their own survival, man must be allowed to choose. So allow me to make this plain and clear for you. Those people who go around spouting how the devil made them do it, and they got caught doing whatever screwed up shit they don't want to take the blame for, they're all full of horse shit. There's not a single demon down in hell that is going to make you do anything that you don't already want to do. Now, you might not want to admit it, but it has to be in there, festering away in your sick little mind. You have to be the one to let us in. And that goes for possession, too. if a man truly doesn't want us to be there, on some level anyways, we won't be. Trust me, if any demon did try to rock the boat on that rule, all of hell would come down on their ass before heaven or earth caught even a whisper of it, because no one here wants to risk what little we have going for us because one arrogant little upstart asshole gets too big for his britches. Second, man's fall would not be celebrated or rewarded or praised. They would be given whatever they ask for, but there would always be a steep price to pay. Hell would not be a haven for the corrupt, but their eternal punishment for their flaws. Mankind was the blight that had cost the fallen their wings and their love, and for that, their only future would be suffering and torment. No mortal within hell would know comfort or mercy. Finally, no lord should interfere with the rule of another. So long as these first two rules were being upheld, none would hold command over another within their own domain. While you exist within one's domicile, you bow and give reverence to them, and you obey the laws that they have written. Within no domicile shall be spilt the blood of who presides over it. While all of hell will be my domicile, I give you right and authority to rule as you see fit within your own. And while my word will remain absolute, your word will be done. Raise your kingdoms as you see fit and keep them well, for you are their masters as I am yours. Beyond that, so long as these laws would be upheld, so long as they all remembered why they were here and what their objective was, each was named lord of their own domain. Rings, they called them, each embodying the evil that they would bring upon the mortals above, and the punishments that they would inflict upon them when they fell below. Satan's, whose violent fall was prefaced with drawing weapon against those that refuted them, thrown from the heavens by Michael himself, crashed so hard and fast that his descent near outsped Lucifer, set out to build his ring upon fire and brimstone. Within his realm, steel and malice alike would be tempered and forged. Every ounce of his anger and fury poured into the tools of war and the training of his soldiers alike. Within those raging furnaces, where hellfire roared hot enough to weaken and melt even the most stalwart of souls, was born the sin of wrath. And so, he decreed that those consumed by their wrath would know its pain 100 times over. To suffer as subjects, to test their creations, and have weapons and torture alike perfected upon their flesh. To have screams torn forth from them into this inferno. To have no freedom from their hate for those around them, whose screams drowned out their own crying and begging for mercy. This would be the punishment for those who fell before him. To aid with his duties, from his malice was born the first demons of wrath, acting as his craftsmen and tending his kilns, known as the Forged, among whom there were 99. Asmodeus, who was the wisest among them and had first realized the power of their new names and selves, whose crimes went unspoken by the heavens, yet he grinned with the malice of someone who knew what he had done, built his ring in an area where he tore and razed the lands. Within his domain, man would do as he was designed to and pursue desire. Temptation would rule as absolute, and the frenzied pursuit of sweet bliss would drive all. From his own desires, desperate carnal desires, was born the sin of lust. And so he decreed that those consumed by their lust would from the bottom of his mountain strive to reach him upon the highest reeks when the promise of body of or knowledge, or power, or any other they desire that they sought awaited them. Upon their bellies they would drag their naked bodies across the rough and jagged stone, tearing at their flesh and bone, all while hell partook of its own desires from their bodies and would continually drag them back down. To have dignity and memories of who and what they were slowly plucked from their battered and used selves. And to the very special strong few that could manage to reach him atop the lightning-struck peaks, be faced with the reality that they could not remember what they so desperately reached for, or who they were, or even why they were here. To suffer as his personal entertainment for the rest of eternity, to satisfy without ever feeling satisfaction themselves. This would be the punishment to those who fell before him. To aid with his duties, from his desires were born the first demons of lust, embodiments of twisted sexual desires known as the Jezebel, among whom there were 13. Beelzebub, whose greatest crime was that of questioning the heavens and demanding answers they would not give, whose descent and crash was the most agonizing, limped to the far corners and grew lush, dense forests that remained dark and unnavigable to even the most cautious of souls for their ring. Within their lands, all would exist knowing what it truly meant to be hungry and helpless, to be desperate to survive, and feel the threat of teeth ever looming upon one's neck. All would know the thrill of hunting and feasting, but all would in turn know the fear and agony of being hunted and devoured in time. The only thing that could hope to thrive in these dark woods was the rot and decay that all things would one day be taken by. For their hunger and for all things was insatiable, and their emptiness all-consuming, and from their need to indulge was born the sin of gluttony. And so, they decreed that all who were consumed by their gluttony would never again know relief from the pangs of hunger or thirst, and would be doomed to an eternity of seeking any substance that may satisfy their needs. To be hunted and feasted upon, and nothing but a means to an end, and nothing more. To have their addiction grow like a parasite inside of them, until it completely enveloped them. They could do naught but ferment in it, until the parasite festered, and their rotten bodies lay decomposing in the earth, spreading their scourge to all that threaded through the sludge that they had become. This would be the punishment to those that fell before them. To aid with their duties, from his yearning was born the first demons of gluttony, a group of spies that knew not each other's faces but felt each other's hunger, whom they commanded as leader and shepherd alike, known as the Swarm, among whom there were 15. Belphegor, who would refuse to speak out for or against the fallen, and did not bow to the demand of taking the stance of refuting them, was made to join them for his crimes, built his ring into a vast sprawling city near the deep caverns of the subterranean. Within his city, one will be free to spend it however they pleased, as long as the eternal work demanded of them was completed by someone. One could live their life not lifting a finger for themselves, and wither happily to atrophy or focus fully on whatever task they wanted and didn't need done if they had the time to afford it. Time, however, or as endless as it seemed, was everything. Every moment more precious than gold. And unless you stole it from someone else, you would never have enough. From his indifference and inaction was born the sin of sloth. And so they decreed that all who were consumed by their sloth would make up for a life spent lax or cowardly, would be spent making it up with an eternity of servitude, that they would never know rest or peace or slumber.
that they would feel the bone-deep ache of endless toil and the madness of their fears looming over their shoulder, that their work would be as meaningless as their miserable lives, that the satisfaction of a worthwhile job well done would not even comfort them, and that they existed only to have their time stolen by hell. This would be the punishment to those that fell before him. To aid in his duties, from his mind and his hands he built constructs, relentless and sleepless, fueled by the souls they siphoned and churned through their gears, leaving only the screams of those unfortunate damned be released like steam through their cores. Known as the Atma, among whom there were 16. He was then granted demons of like-mindedness by Lucifer himself, and thus the first demons of sloth were found. Mammon, who demanded worship and tribute from humanity, who in her eyes would not exist had the angels not come before them, and who, unknown to all, had stolen from heaven a bottle of ambrosia before they fell, wandered the expanses of hell longer than any other, seeing where all others created their rings, and learned what they needed before setting herself in a space that she flooded with sands that glimmered like gold to build her ring upon. Within her empire, only nothing would come for nothing. Whoever had the most to give, the most to gain. Unlike all the other rings that remained closed to travel, hers would be open to all who had something to give and gain alike. From her wish to have all and more, and her desire to steal more from heaven, which rivaled even Lucifer's, was born the sin of greed. And so she decreed that all who were consumed by their greed would be stripped of all that they were worth and more, to have everything they value stolen from them before they themselves were sold as things to be had, as food and slaves to the demons of gluttony and sloth, as fodder and whores to wrath and lust, to any demon with anything they had to give. They could be sold and traded as commodity, and convenience alongside all manner of things. This would be the punishment for those that fell before her. To aid in her duties, she did not birth or create her own, but from the most prestigious demons of all other rings did she recruit those who without cease sought more than all others, and who had the most to offer. Known as the Gesher, among whom there were 72, and from them were born the first true demons of greed. Leviathan, who was the first to wake and last to fall, who loved her brethren more than heaven, whom broke her own halo as she dove from on high of her own accord to remain with her beloved, found the deepest of trenches and willed the land of her ring to flood and freeze. Within her depths, nothing would flourish or thrive. Merely long and hope and dream of that which was not theirs to have. Only those she deemed worthy would be granted the right to have, and even they only had so that the others would see what they did not. In turn, they would want for what they themselves did not that she alone did. From her jealousy of humanity's flaws and ability to choose and grow, and from her resentment towards the heavens that stole from her and Lucifer the life they could have had, was born the sin of envy. And so she decreed that all who were consumed by their envy would tremble, freeze, until even the memory of the warmth that their longings once granted them were stripped away, and they stood unable to free themselves from the acid chill their hearts had gripped them with, to sink deeper and deeper into the drowning abyss that their own self-loathing and hopelessness and hatred weighed them down in, to reach for a sun that shines ever and always just out of reach, just narrowly too far to warm their chilled souls, tempting them, if they kept wandering deeper and deeper into the blizzards, that they would find their salvation in that which they so pathetically longed for, only to wither like a crushed-out blossom in the winter freeze over again, till they shattered and broke, just to be granted an ounce of false tenderness, so they would try again. This would be the punishment for those that fell before her. And to aid in her duties, within the one space that she kept warm, a beautiful garden she let bloom her own covetous desires to know and relish alongside her brethren in all of their sins as well. And thus was bloomed the first demons of envy, known as the nymphs, among whom there were 6. And of course, there was him, Lucifer, the first to fall and last to wake, who had refused to accept humanity as their betters, or even call them his equal, had been the first to refuse to join in the choir, built his ring at what could be called the head of the table, where he could watch, oversee all other rings with ease. Within his kingdom, at the heart of which sat his citadel, he ruled those that acted as his enforcement and his prophets. Those who saw themselves above others thrived, so long as they had the power to prove themselves right. Those that merely thought highly of themselves without the means to back it existed to be mocked and torn down and used for entertainment. Amusement and distraction defined existence, and you either were entertainment or you were the elite who laughed and jeered with delight. And from his arrogance and self-righteousness, from the very hubris that made him think himself with the right to question the heavens and act as if he knew better than God Almighty, was born the sin of pride. And so he decreed that all who were consumed by their pride would be left with none to call their own. Drugged before the denizens of hell for their delight and entertainment, their suffering would be a distraction from the cruel fate of being born without the Father's light or love. They would be walked over and spat upon, and the refuse and piss they wallowed in would have more value than them. Made less than the fallen, less than demons, less than beasts of burden and vermin, less than all other things in creation. Every mistake, every blemish, every flaw that God found beautiful used against them as they were broken down and forced to admit they were worthless things that didn't deserve the short miracle of life they were granted. Then, and only then, would they be given any meaningful purpose, to be used as the bricks and mortar, to build hell upon and feel the weight of every sinner in hell crushing them for eternity, for daring to ever think they were in any way above their fellow man. This would be the punishment, those that fell before him. To aid in his duties from his vanity was born the first demons of pride, acting as distractions to lure men from God's teachings and fumble and tumble into hell's hungry maw, each serving as advisors to his fellow fallen brethren, known as the disciples, among whom there were 12 quite charming individuals. Then, further still, beyond any of them, furthest from the reach of Lucifer's attentive gaze, lay one final ring, one which none among them had built, but it had existed before even them, a ring they could not see, nor enter, nor even find. But all of them could feel with clarity that it existed true as any other ring. Try as we might, even to this very day, none have ever found so much as a scrap of proof of what may reside within it, or even where the ring itself may lay beyond speculation. A way to be spared and make it all the way up to the heavens? Something that could grant power the likes of which even Lucifer himself couldn't imagine? A prison for an eighth lord that fell with them, that even they saw fit to banish and hide from the world? Or maybe it's not even real and it's all just a fairy tale the lords made up to give a Demons who were too ambitious for their own good. Something to chase, like the mad dogs they are. I've heard all kinds of speculation. What's hiding in that hidden ring? Personally, I think it's an open grave. Dug and ready for all creation to run its course and take its final gasp. But that's just my guess, with little and less to back it up besides a gut feeling. And thus, rings were formed. Heaven wasn't exactly what you'd call thrilled when they got the news that not only had Lucifer and his loyalists survived being cast down, now had a mind to set their sights upon mankind. While still man was flawed by design, they were still innocent from all sin, as it were. So it wasn't like there was anything a few angry outcasts could do. At least, that's how the angels above saw it. Honestly, it would have saved them a whole mess of trouble if they'd listened to Michael and let him come down here and finish the job. The hindsight really is 20/20. And however many extra 20s you need to throw on for the likes of them. The humanity's part, though, life went on. Oh, our sides had squabbles, sure, but largely heaven and earth. We're both content to let mankind do as they saw fit. Both sides had their own field operatives out there, saving souls and stirring up trouble. Guardian angels who'd come down and be good little guiding lights to keep their flock from getting lost, and folks like me waiting on folks like you at the crossroads, offering whatever you need to make your lives just a bit more bearable. Of course, nowadays, Lucifer and the original Fallen's plans for revenge against heaven and their hatred of humanity doesn't much matter. The demon by the name of Greco came sauntering out of greed and ate every last one of them. Very interesting. Very interesting. And Mango King TV, welcome. Welcome. Thank you. Thanks for being here. So, yeah, I like this, Lucy, because it's a different side of this story. And I like it because you give depth to it, and nothing out of here seems out of line. It makes me want to know more about Greco. You know what tipped me off? What tipped me off was one particular line that I saw earlier when I just kind of glanced at it, and that was it's way up high. Way early on. What was the line? Now, I wasn't there for none of that. That hit me right off the bat. I was like, I wasn't there for none of that. That told me what kind of a voice it had to be. So, well done. I mean, I love it when I get a clue like that. Lucifer's a little easier because Lucifer's kind of stereotypical. So I went with a stereotypical Lucifer. Yeah, that particular line is the one that tipped me off. That's the voice to hear this in. Is that it's, this is, and the fact that you also mentioned folks like you at the crossroads. Immediately, I had images in my head. That came very late. I didn't see that until just now when I read it, but that one clued me in that, you're on the right track. So now I want to know more about Greco. So well done. Very well written. I like it. So more, please. More. I'd like to read more. Thank you very much. More. I did pause that. There was an incoming ad. I did pause it for a few minutes. So we're going to hit another ad here in about 2.5 minutes, which is perfect. More! Yes, more. More. We want more. Must to have more. Let me, not muted for the moment. Oh, thanks for the follow, Mango. Yeah. I like having more because, otherwise I just read the stuff that's, public domain. If you have more and you are not part of my Discord, there's a link.
I don't have any more viewer submissions. I would love to read more viewer submissions. I don't have any more. If you have one, you can either drop a link here in the chat. We are link friendly for that. Or you can go into my Discord and go into the Showcase Requests channel. And that is, you can leave links in there. So you can leave links in there anytime, not just during my streams. So you can always drop it in there. Yeah, just drop it in. If you've got one, do it. I'll read it. As a rule, try to keep it 5,000 words or less, just because that's about 50 minutes. That takes about an hour to read. But other than that, go for it. If trigger warnings are advisable, please put that in your, at the top to say, hey, trigger warnings, and tell me what they are. I don't mind trigger warnings. I like to give them for my readers so I can post what the trigger warning is. I actually have a trigger warning thing that will pop up. So, if you got one, you say so, and I'll put it so that people can see. And then when I turn off the trigger warning, they know they can come back. But I like to be friendly to everyone. And, but otherwise, I'll read pretty much anything. But I do need the trigger warnings, because I will be unhappy if I read something that should have had a trigger warning. And I didn't get one. That's not cool. So, if you think it needs one, say so. 15 seconds to the ad, and then I will be back in a couple minutes after that. It'll give me time to drink a little bit. And then if we have something to read in the Discord, I will be happy to read it. Otherwise, we will go on with chapter 21 of Frankenstein. We're nearing the end. I need to cut all those together into one. I might have to redo some of them just to fix errors and stuff, but excellent. If you got a trigger warning, that's perfectly fine. Like I said, as long as you got a trigger warning, we're good. We had one for slavery a little while ago for one that I read. That's fine. Just let people know. That's all. I see something. I see something coming in. Yeah, it hasn't started yet. I see something coming in. I see typing. The violence. An essay. Okay. So let me change that trigger warning. Actions of violence. SA. Okay. Cool. I've got that. Prologue of book 1 of 7 in a series that have been transferred for years. Existed at D&D Center for a few years now. Excellent. Okay. Cool. Now, let me pull this up. Out of bounds. All right. Okay. All right, well, we'll start right after the ad. Ugh. All right. What the damn anger? The word count is still king. So, okay. Oops. All right. Looks like we're yep. Well, somebody's back from ads at least. I've still got 35 seconds apparently. So yeah, thank you for the trigger warning, Mango. I will that'll go up on screen in just a minute here. And we'll start with what we have, and then we'll see where we're going. You know, I'm going to be here for at least another hour, for about an hour and 10 minutes, and I have to go cook for Mrs. K. But yeah, for at least another 10 minutes, another hour and 10 minutes. So if I get there, I get there. If I don't, we'll save it for next week. So we'll continue it. No, I appreciate you sharing it. That's actually the most important part, is people are sharing it. There's the ad break. It's finishing now, so everybody should be coming back. So, okay, so we are going to read Mango's work here. It starts with Out of Bounds. It's the first chapter of the 5-year white belt. Interesting. I'm feeling very Mr. Miyagi-ish suddenly. By the way, they have the sequel coming out, which actually looks like it might be good, even though I hate Ralph Macchio. But I do like Jackie Chan. It looks like it might be an interesting sequel coming out to Karate Kid. Yeah, and anybody else who's watching, if you have something you'd like to share, join my Discord. There's the link. Drop it in the Showcase Requests channel, and I'll be glad to put it in the queue and read it. So, all right. So here we go. Again, I am just now looking at this for the first time, so apologies if I don't get a voice right. I will go back and try to reread the parts that I get wrong. So, all right, let's get started. Chapter 1, Out of Bounds. Look, I didn't start the fight on purpose. I don't even like fighting. Violence has never been my answer or what I was taught growing up. Running is always the best option. Avoid conflict. I couldn't agree more. What if you ran out of options? It's a fight to survive. My name's Julie Kahn. I'm 16 years old. And if you asked me a few months ago what my favorite thing in the world was, the answer was already on my lips. Basketball, I would say, with my signature lisp. Does that make me easy to pick on? Absolutely. I was a chubby kid growing up. During the youth basketball league, I was dubbed Dumpling Defense. The nickname stuck. I was an overweight Cali girl who was just too tired to run across half court from defense to offense. One of the boys once told me how I was shaped like a ball with ankles and feet attached to it. That lit a fire under me. I didn't quit because I still loved the sport. I was never giving up on basketball. Greats had put in their time for countless hours when no one was watching. I was no exception. I was stuck with the team for the whole season. I had to put in my best effort, even if I didn't give me the results I wanted. Things were fine that summer until the last day of June. Sunday. I was playing pickup basketball on the courts after service. Our church was ideal for extra practice on different courts. Squeezed in any hours I could to drill my form. The heat was uncomfortable. Pastor tugged at his dress shirt's collar to cool off. One boy's shirt was already soaked in sweat, front to back. Among the 8 players, Hannah Ann and her father was the only opponents that mattered. If there was anyone who loved basketball more than me, it was Hannah and her family. When I visited their house, the basketball court in the backyard looked brand new. There were no uneven cracks in the ground, and clean white lines created distinct boundaries. When I eagerly asked Hannah if I could try shooting, she offered me her basketball to borrow. A leather Spalding she'd received for her birthday. Hannah and I were best friends at the time. I'd invited her when I first started attending the service as a form of outreach. She began to fit in faster than I did. Her easy temper, charismatic voice, and a less athleticism made her popular among the boys and girls. We hadn't hung out for weeks
I only saw each other on Sunday, but on the basketball course, she had to pay attention to me. Mr. On was on the other team with Hannah. He was Hannah's father, at least 6 feet tall, with slim shoulders and limbs. His long shadow followed him as he loomed towards the basketball net. We began to play. Left to right, a crossover, then back fade. Step back, fade away as Hannah scored. As we reset, I decided to get more physical. I used my body to block a pass for my teammate, guarded by Mr. On, but my knees to brace for impact. When Mr. On came at my screen, he fell to his back. I turned to get ready for the next play.
You tripped me. You know you don't have to play dirty,
Mr. On said. How silly. I turned around. Excuse me? I don't have to play dirty to beat you guys, I said as I raised my eyebrows.
I'm just saying you don't have to play dirty,
the angry man repeated, his tone rising. Then my best friend's father made a motion for me to come closer. I shook off the impulse to walk away. Mr. On blocked the rest of the crowd out with his body. The sensation of his fingers on my body froze me. A slow, creeping horror crawled up my spine as I realized he had just groped me. Why did you do that? I blurted, my voice trembling.
Don't talk back to me. You're the one who tripped me,
Mr. On thundered. The ball was in my hands before I knew it. I threw it hard at his back. My heart was in my throat, but my voice was steady as I spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Do you come some kind of pedophile at church? No one moved. They all watched. Mr. On inspected the ball and tossed it to my feet like he was flicking dirt from his shoe.
She doesn't know what she's talking about,
Mr. On jeered.
Just a girl.
I stopped listening to common sense. The basketball rolled away and I hastily picked it up. I called Mr. On out for a one-on-one. I had Mr. On's attention now. His face was nearly purple as he loomed over me. My blood was boiling with righteous fury. I faked to my right and sprinted through the hoop. Mr. On used his height. He swatted and shot the shot midair, the echo reverberating like a clap of thunder. Reset. Managed to rip the ball from his arms. I tugged, wrenching the basketball free with all my might. His grip loosened. Victory was mine. In the motion of passing to my teammates, I turned. However, my teammates' eyes were wide. They seemed to be looking not at me, but behind me. I felt it before I saw it. A hand grabbed at my waist. My body lifted off the ground. My heart shot up to my throat. The horizon shifted as I crashed to the concrete, pain shooting up my spine. The dusty air of the churchyard was like a haze around me. I am in danger. I would like to say that I looked cooler for my first fight ever. All I managed was to pinch my ankles around his neck as we fumbled and wrestled on the concrete. That brief exchange felt like forever. I was enough for one of those people watching to pull Mr. On off. My own father had come to my rescue. I looked around at all the people watching. Hannah was nowhere to be seen, and Mr. On hung his head with his hand covering his face. The crowd had begun to gather as the church elders whispered among themselves with their hands covering their lips. You better watch your back, I hissed at him. My dad pushed me towards the car home. I felt the adrenaline dump wear off. My limbs were suddenly heavy from their unconscious tension. I immediately broke down crying. I thought about how I would have prevented the situation a million ways. I never thought someone I knew would assault me, much less my best friend's father. My head spun. I was rolling the car window down for air as father slammed his driver's side door shut. The ride home was quiet. Couldn't think of much to say to my dad immediately. When I finally gathered my thoughts, I spoke hesitantly. I was so scared. Didn't mean to do anything if you didn't pull him off. I trailed off mid-sentence. Father didn't reply at first. He rubbed at his neck. It took me a while to piece it together. This wasn't about me. My father was embarrassed. My brazen call-out, the attention I drew to our family at church, the On family, his friends, would now see me as the troublemaker.
Why did you have to do that?
I shook his head. What? I stared at him in disbelief.
You'll apologize to Mr. On next time we see him,
he said flatly. I couldn't breathe. I had no appetite during dinner after Father and I discussed with Mother what had transpired. He took one look at Father and they mutually nodded. As they asked me for what really went down, I looked to their disappointed eyes, see that nothing I said would win them over. All could be forgiven and washed away with time. Maybe I was just too young to understand my parents' reassurance. Mother had already called Mrs. On. Tomorrow morning we were to patch things up. A hollow pain began to grow in my chest. I excused myself to my room, locking the door. I couldn't contain my frustration anymore as I scattered my torn clothing on the floor. Tackle had left a nasty gash on the side of my left leg. I was too tired to care about disinfecting the wound, though. My favorite pair of leggings was now a reminder of the worst day of my life. Why didn't anyone protect me? Got back to the fight. I marched up to Goliath tomorrow and challenged him. I somehow doubted that I would be able to do much. I shuddered as I imagined him dragging me to the floor again while I lay there flailing. I would apologize tomorrow. What about the next time something happens? I didn't have an answer for that. I still felt hot with anger and fear, tangling my stomach in knots. The next morning, Mr. On came to our house. Alone. I was almost unsure he was the same person. His disposition was meek and his handshake gentle as he apologized with a bow of his head. I couldn't let go of his hand more quickly. The visit was brief. Mr. On excused himself. I wasn't really sure if he really cared about whether my apology was genuine or not. I had no choice in any of this. I stared at the figure in the distance. I felt drunk on poison. I counted 6 people on the mats. 3 of them wore white belts, 2 had blue belts, and a single purple belt rolled on the floor a few feet in front of me. I quietly observed as the men and women yanked and tugged at each other's uniforms. I had waited inside the gym for no more than 10 minutes. I watched from my chair a few feet away from the grapplers. The faint white paint on the walls had portraits of tough-looking dudes gazing back at me. Their colorless eyes looked intently back at me like lions finding their new prey. I had found the martial arts dojo scrolling through my phone. The ad directed me towards a convenient location only 10-minute ride at a local bus from my home. Surprisingly, parents were supportive of my decision to learn self-defense. I had come here along with my father, who sat next to me preoccupied with his phone. As soon as I saw the grappling exchanges on the mats, I secretly wondered if some hidden talent would reveal itself to me with a second try.
Hi, I'm Harry. How can I help you?
Boy startled me. A middle-aged man with a straight, tall posture walked over to me. He wore leather sandals with scars all over his ankles. His fingernails and toenails were neatly trimmed and short, most likely to prevent scratches. Julie, I mumbled. I heard there was a Brazilian jiu-jitsu program here. I eyed the 4 faded white stripes hanging loosely from the dark brown fabric on his belt. He was a veteran in this field, only second to black belts. I was just Julie. Dumpling defense. I had thought carefully the night before. I researched online for hours. Don't ask to fight the instructor. Make friends on the first day. Tap early to submissions. My mind was blank as curiosity spilled from my lips. I want to learn to fight, I declared. Harry blinked but then smiled.
We can help with that, Julie,
He said.
For the beginner classes, let me show you the schedule,
He said with excitement. There wasn't a note of disappointment or frustration towards me in Harry's voice. In fact, he sounded eager and excited as he asked me more questions.
Do you want to try rolling?
I hadn't prepared for this. Father looked curiously at me with a look that said, You sure? I took a moment to think. I had expected simply to watch the class as an observer, not become the next bloodstain on the mats. Right when I was ready to walk away, I thought back to everything that brought me here. I envisioned Mr. On's sneer and stupid-looking face one more time. I dug my nails into my palms and nodded to Harry. Harry led me to the changing room and handed me a ragged blue uniform meant for trial classes. I inspected the threads woven tightly like steel wires on the uniform. Traced my fingers on the fabric. Would I be strong enough when it was my turn? The outfit felt heavy, and when I finished putting it on, it was like some colorful pajama armor. I opened the door back to the main area. I remembered to bow before the mats. When I looked up from the moment I bowed, all I saw were eyes staring at me. The timer rang out suddenly, and the group began moving again. People on the mats removed their mouthpieces and drank deeply from their water bottles between their ragged breaths. All were dripping in sweat from head to toe. One of the blue belts spat a hair from his mouth into a trash can. The timer rang out again. I found myself pulled towards the edges of the mat, towards the wall. Familiar grins and laughs exchanged as the people partnered up for the next round. As the gym members began to pair up, I locked eyes with someone. The boy was about a head shorter than me. At most, I guessed that he was a middle schooler. He had pale blonde hair with blue eyes. His gi was blue like mine, but bleached in certain spots. On his waist was a green belt with a single stripe running through it. Looked around to see my available options. Everyone but the two of us were engaged in combat, grunting in their efforts. I would be wasting my chance to practice if I did nothing. I'll be nice to him. I walked over to the kid with a smile. He nodded wordlessly and extended his fist toward me. Unsure what to do, I imitated a karate stance from one of my favorite movies. We began to spar. The roll started off slow. Harry had advised me not to let anyone grab me.
Grips are everything in jiu-jitsu.
I recalled as I made wild improvised swipes anytime the boy tried to grab hold of me. The boy fainted, then suddenly whipped me up by the collar of my uniform downward to the mats. The cross grips the boy had on my collar were constricting the arteries, pumping blood to my brain as my vision grew dark and scrambled. My breathing came out in short bursts. I couldn't lose again. I have to do something. I balled my fists. Before I struck the boy, Harry's voice called out from a distance.
Logan, we don't use collar chokes on white belts.
Pressure disappeared, but the humiliation lingered. I cleared my throat and tried to blink out the stars that were covering my vision. The timer trilled again for the final time that day. Class was now over. I refused to be helped up as I slowly breathed and gathered myself to my feet. The entire class stood in a line facing the wall of photos. Harry began to read off announcements while I tried not to faint on my feet. Afterwards, we bowed and shook hands in line. I thanked the instructors, the people in the class, especially Harry, for not letting me die. I did not eat again at home. I showered without falling over and then slept face first. I dreamed of nothing at all. Chapter 3, Thirst for Poison. Harry made the rolling armbar look so easy. There was another time where I found myself endlessly confused during the technique instruction. Immediately, I was reminded why it felt so discouraging in the first place. All the members just seemed to be a step ahead. Everyone else seemed to get it within a few tries. Of course, everyone was friendly and let me ask questions. Most of the time, people would offer tips and advice when I asked for it. When I asked Harry how to escape the bottom position in the armbar, he was not helpful. His favorite joke was,
Don't get there in the first place.
if anyone expected me to give up or cry because I sucked, so be it. I never wanted to be the best or the strongest at grappling. I only needed to beat up one bastard. I imagined Mr. On training against any of the martial artists at the gym. As strong as Mr. On seemed when he tackled me to the ground, the upper belts would straight up demolish him with style. You're doing it wrong, Logan said flatly. He sighed as I fumbled my way out of the limb entanglement. Logan was usually my partner, as we were similarly sized compared to the rest of the class. As I recounted the steps that Harry showed in class, I studied Logan closely. Don't try to remember it all at once. It's like drinking from a fire hose. Logan checked the clock. Just focus on each detail. Easy for you to say. We began our regular sparring. I tried to remember the extra complicated armbar while rolling. However, the harder I would try to grasp at this new knowledge, the more it would escape me. Winning felt impossible, while survival was more probable. The rounds were 6 minutes each, but felt way longer. Every time I tapped out after being crushed underneath my opponent, I felt my ego slowly dissolve. Remains of my confidence were minced and diced into inconspicuous molecules. Time dragged as my gi became soaked and heavy with sweat. Finally, the bell rang for the final time as I wheezed between sips from my water bottle. We ended class with announcements again. I gathered my breathing as I bowed and shook hands with the members. I decided to stay behind and help clean before heading back home. There wasn't much to look forward to besides washing up, cleaning my uniform, and studying before school tomorrow. Harry walked over to me as I hastily dry swept the surface of the mats.
Don't give up, Julie. Most people take 10 years to become a black belt.
Harry chirped. Giving up wasn't an option for me. Mats were spotless. Harry locked the gym and waved me goodbye as I walked to my car. Even though it was past midnight, I couldn't sleep. My mind was still racing and thinking about jujitsu. I was still in fight mode. Rambling out of bed, I found a spare journal from my backpack. I searched for a pen. I began taking notes in a journal, filling pages with messy drawings of arm bars, side control escapes, all my fighting knowledge. Each piece was a brick in the wall I was building around myself. Protection against the world.
Chapter 4. The Guard.
I talked to Harry about my journal at the end of another one of his classes.
You're partially right. Jiu-jitsu is fundamentally about controlling the other person against their will. Well, that bit in your position notes sounds wrong, but you have the right idea.
Harry toyed with a loose string from his gi.
Submissions can be positions too.
How could that be? I felt hopeless every time I ended up on the bottom side during sparring. Even after learning the textbook escapes from side control and mount, it felt way better not to be there in the first place. I'll just show you, Logan interjected. Harry's eyebrows lifted.
Consider it a free private lesson. Logan needs to work on his guard too.
Logan shrugged as we assumed positions. Logan simply sat on the floor with his elbows tucked to his ribs and hands splayed outwards. His feet were tucked to his waist as he sat to the floor, so relaxed. Was he underestimating me? I had no idea what to do, guessing that it would be safe to try. I attempted moving to Logan's sides to maneuver around and assume side control. I had learned the figure 4 lock from the position and practiced it a few times during class. Yet, Logan never stopped following me. Both of his feet reached out towards my hips as I stood trying to pass to the other side. No matter how fast I went, Logan's deadpan expression followed. We went around in circles for a few tries. Frustrated, I tried moving directly towards Logan. Shadow crossed my vision as I blinked. Logan's legs were now wrapped around my chest, one leg over my shoulder and the other leg underneath. His legs formed a lock around my upper chest, compressing my breathing as he swung his right ankle under the pit of his left knee.
Nice triangle, Logan!
Harry cheered as I began to choke. I rolled side to side, but there was no escape from the squeeze. I tapped as Logan relieved the constriction.
This is the guard, my favorite way to play jiu-jitsu,
Harry said. Shadows lined my vision.
With the open guard, you focus on defense by getting your legs in between yourself and your opponent. From the bottoms of your feet to your ankles to your knees, ideal circumstances allow a guard player to beat anyone.
Harry patiently recited. Harry thanked us for coming and gave the keys to Logan. The room was silent as Logan and I cleaned the floors. I turned towards Logan, repeating the steps of the triangle choke in my head. How come I never see you play guard? I asked. Logan was quiet, in thought for a moment. When I began to think he was just ignoring me as usual, he gave an unexpected answer. Pulling guard is a disgrace to jiu-jitsu. Often guard pullers are mocked for not upholding the standard for real self-defense scenarios. I don't plan on ever using the guard like Harry, but for sport it's fine, I guess. Well, what's the difference between sport and self-defense jiu-jitsu? I thought we were training both, I asked. Well, there is a difference. You want to compete in pure competition setting, guard is your defense. You need to have a basic understanding of how to defend against attacks in order to not lose instantly. However, Logan began to think, you could just never give your opponent the chance. Non-stop passing, pure attack. Logan turned the keys into the gym's front door and tested the handle. I hesitated before walking to my car. I stopped him. Can you show me how to pass? It was freezing. My breath fogged up the inside of my car as I rubbed my shoulders. I glanced at the digital clock on the dashboard. 5:45 a.m. The sun wasn't even up yet. The guy talked big, but maybe he was just a lower belt that didn't know anything. I felt anxious and hesitant. Was this really a good idea? I peered inside the gym. A shadow darted across the mats inside, contorting into impossible shapes. He was already here. How long had he been up? I sighed, opened the car door, and braced for the cold. The air bit my skin, and I shivered while approaching the entrance door. My fist hesitantly knocked against the metal frame. The noise felt silent in the gym. It was a while before I heard anything. My heart jumped when I finally heard a voice call out. "Come in!" Logan said. "How long have you been training? We weren't supposed to start until 6. You started without me," I blurted out as I entered. Logan laughed. "There is no we. You start at 6. I start at 5. After I finished unclenching my fists, I studied the boy. Logan wore a striped white and black rash guard. On the back were the words, "Unproved," in bold print. His breathing was calm now, although the sweat streaks on the mat and matted hair gave away their recent workout. I see. I signed up to train with a psycho. "What are we doing for the warm-up?" I asked, dreading the answer. "Run." Logan turned away to do some stretching. "How long?" "Until I say stop." I resisted the urge to smack the backside of his head and began to jog. The floor was cold and the rubbery texture was rough against my soles. "Drop," Logan suddenly barked. "Huh?" I spluttered. "Watch." Logan fell prone with barely a sound. His wiry arms were splayed shoulder-width apart, and the curvature of his spine arched upward. It was only for a second. Immediately, Logan uncoiled and sprung back up to his feet to drop again. He added an additional spin. "Now you," he said. I dropped with less grace. My body slammed with a thud as I moaned in low agony. He didn't have to sigh so loudly. The motions became a blur of exhaustion and muscle failure. My legs burned, lactic acid pumping through every fiber of my being. My breath escaped in short, frosty repetitions. I was sure an hour had passed. When I glanced at the clock, only 15 minutes had ticked by. Run, sprawl, stand, spin, repeat. After what felt like more than an hour, Logan spoke up. "All right. That was a light warm-up. Let's get into passing," he said, his voice infuriatingly calm. "Warm-up?" Struggled to stand. Logan spoke. "Today, I will show you the knee cut. Although basic, this technique has been proven to work at the highest levels of jiu-jitsu. Master the fundamental ideas of this, and you can break through any guard." Practice dummy lay on the mats, its lifeless arms splayed outwards. Logan demonstrated with surgical precision a firm push to flatten the opponent, an underhook for control, and a sharp slide across the hip line to finish. I dropped into position trying to mimic his movements. Push, underhook, knee slide. "Too slow," Logan said, shaking his head. I gritted my teeth and tried again. Each time the critique bit into me. Weak, lazy, sloppy. "Winners raise their hands," he said, making me hold my arms above my head. My muscles screamed in protest, but I didn't drop them. I gulped down water to replenish the fluids I lost over the past hours of torture. Inwardly, I swore to never train with Logan ever again. Logan simply sat watching the clock. It's now nearly 8:30 a.m. and the morning class will be stopping by soon. I stumbled to my feet and helped Logan clean the mats. We had to sanitize the surface of our training area. I found simple pleasure in the role we had in maintaining the safety of the gym for everyone. We mopped quietly. The morning class began trickling in. Logan wiped sweat from his face, his movements quick and efficient as he stuffed his gear into a maroon bag. "You train like this every day?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "While other people are sleeping, I'm working. Every inch I have is one less inch they have. I want to win." "Win at what? I think you're pretty good already." "Good? You want to be just good? His intensity startled me. Before I could respond, he was gone. The morning class members began gently stretching on the mats. All right, I'm going to hold up there for a minute, and we'll keep going after that, but we got an ad coming up in 2.5 minutes, so I don't want to break it up with the ad. So when we get back from that, we'll start with Chapter 5. Electric Rose, thank you for the follow. I forgot to put up my thing. Sorry. So welcome. Mango, I hope I'm doing justice to it. I like it so far. And I did see the hydrate, so hydrate! It's kind of where I felt it going. That early on, she talks about having the lisp. And so I had the lisp in the beginning. But I felt like the first inciting action for her was that fight with Mr. On. So when I felt that inciting action, it was like, okay, this is a change in Julie. She needs to change. So that's why I dropped the lisp. By this time, I will occasionally drop the lisp in a little bit, because even people who have done very hard work to drop a lisp still occasionally do it, especially if they're tense or if they're... So I intentionally, every once in a while, let the lisp pop in. But I made it go away almost completely. I'm trying to distinguish between Julie's voice and Logan's, because he's supposed to be younger. And younger kids tend to have it. The only thing I found so far that threw me for a second, is Julie picked this place because it was a bus ride away from home. But she goes out to her car in either Chapter 3 or Chapter 4. She goes out to her car. So I'm not sure if that's supposed to signify that there's a sufficient amount of time that she's now got her driver's license, or if that is just kind of an oversight. So it threw me for a split second that you had the two. So in my head, I think I went with she's driving now, which means a little more time has passed. So ad starts here in just a few seconds. We'll get through the ad, and then we will continue. And ad starting soon, it says. Things are getting tense. Yeah, I like it. There's that, we have the tension with Mr. On, but we also have this interesting tension between her and Logan. And there's some great foreshadowing going on as to where Julie's choices are going to have to come from. Yeah, the transportation for the gym is kind of like, so one easy solution is, you've talked about that, that we haven't hit the ad yet. I can talk about it. You talked about that, she's a high schooler and he's middle school. So perhaps she has gotten her driver's license. And there's the ad. So we'll wait till the end of the ad and we'll finish that conversation, and we'll start up again. Oh. Do I have any experience in martial arts? Oh, you must be asking Mango. Yeah, I would guess Mango has some experience at it. Or has done a hell of a lot of research. And I know, Stretch, you're the only one who can hear me.
I'm also finding interesting, and then I'll mention this when we come back, that the word dojo has not come up. It's gym, which is cool. I don't know if that's an intentional or not. All right, what do we got? We got a half hour left. Yeah, so we'll be finished before the next ad. What do we got left here? We got 1:18 or less. Ugh. I need to adjust the air conditioner in this joint. It's a bit on the warm side. All right, 45 seconds left. Also got to figure out who I'm going to raid today. Yeah, Stretch, I don't know if you follow Andy Lippy. He does a lot of the stuff for OBS. You probably do. He was talking about on stream, no? A-N-D... N-D-I-L-I-P-P-I. He does a lot of stuff. Andy Lippy does a lot of stuff with OBS, a lot of plugins and stuff like that. And he's got a new plugin that he was playing with on his stream that lets you preview someone else's stream before you raid. And it automates the whole thing. So it will do, it'll preview their stream in a window, and then a few seconds before the raid's ready to go, it goes full size, and then does the raid. It's really cool. I'm probably going to play with it. You've done jiu-jitsu for 4 years. All right, then that explains it. So a question I had in the, let me finish the first thought I had, which was, as for the transportation to the gym, she is in high school, if I remember correctly. He's not. Logan's not. But maybe she is, maybe she has gotten her driver's license. And if you mentioned that, that would tell us that a little bit of time has passed and would explain it. That there was some time has passed in her training. Just a suggestion there. Again, all mine are suggestions. Do with it what works for you. I tell you what the things that I see as I'm reading. But a question that I did come up with was, you never use the word dojo. Is that intentional? Is it something that in jiu-jitsu it's not called a dojo? Is that strictly for karate or kung fu or I am not a martial artist. I have never taken martial arts, so I don't know the proper terminologies. I'm aware of pronunciations. I'm aware of some meaning, but I couldn't tell you the order of belts. I know that judo and jiu-jitsu are similar, but not the same. That especially jiu-jitsu is much more about, judo and jiu-jitsu are more about using the opponent's movement against them, I believe. You just hate the word. Fine. Cool. I was wondering if that was because it was just you never used it. And it is a cliche word to use. So I totally get it. All right. So, where was I? Oh yeah, we were just about to start chapter 5. All right. So, back on with it with chapter 5, A Heavenly Chord. The days passed one after another. Logan and I would see each other during classes, but he barely acknowledged me other than occasional cursory nod. He never made fun of my progress directly, but that deadpan stare during our spars made it very clear that he didn't feel any threat of losing to me. 10 years to be a black belt? I still had school and my other responsibilities.
I would be making way more than most of these martial artists ever could once I graduated from college far off in the future. I'd always been a straight A student with ease. Within the time span I could spend chasing some black belt, I could have earned a master's degree. However, a deep doubt clouded my mind. The boy was missing a few brain cells from training all the time, but Logan was determined in what he set out to do. Waking up that early in the morning to practice those movements could not have been easy when he first started out. I found it heroic that Logan worked it that hard at such a young age. I shrank into my gi as I changed for class in the changing room. He had the right idea in his game of inches. The boy wonder had already lapped me several times before I even started. Weeks turned to months. The results seemed to have barely changed when I rolled. Even as I was progressing, so was everyone else. I held neither advantages nor victories over my training partners. The white belts outmuscled me, the blue belts overwhelmed me with athleticism, the purple belts toyed with me, the brown belts dismantled me without breaking a sweat, not even close to rolling against the black belts at this point. It wasn't until one class on triangle chokes that something clicked.
Control your arms. Control one of the arms with an overhook. Grab the other arm's sleeve to create space for your leg to pass over. Create a frame with your legs. Pull the arm across to constrict one side of the neck. Throw the top leg's ankle under the other's knee pit. Cut the angle and use the hamstrings to compress and finish.
We had drilled this triangle several days this week. Not to mention, I was studying submissions outside of class in hopes that it would help. I never seemed to get the ideal setup the way it was shown in class. When we were actively fighting, people would recognize the setup and avoid putting themselves in the situation for the rest of the day. I sparred with Logan to start off the rolling session. Immediately, I was tackled to the floor, merciless as usual. At the very least, I appreciated that Logan didn't go easy on me despite being the new girl at the gym. I tapped from 3 headlocks I could not even name before the bell rang to switch. I managed to catch my breath and paired up with another partner before Harry shouted to roll again. My next partner was an older, stocky white belt. While we were on the same rank, he had 2 stripes on his belt, indicating the halfway point on his journey from white to blue. I introduced myself and asked if he had any injuries. He replied with a thumbs up, but thanked me for being polite. I never was any good at remembering names, but I knew each person by their techniques. Pretty easy to remember once you figured out their favorite finisher. Logan was an armbar phenom, finding ways to hyperextend my elbow from any angle he chose. On the other hand, Harry was the triangle master. He would roll while casually reciting the steps to the triangle he would perform on you out loud. One time, a random passerby barged into the gym and challenged Harry in the middle of class. When Harry declined, the stranger became more aggressive and continued to interrupt. Everyone in the class watched the guy was submitted within the first 15 seconds of a 6-minute round. Harry let him try as many times as he wished. When the man left with 3:30 remaining on the round timer, Harry made sure to lock the front door for the rest of the day. The entire class agreed. What an idiot! I bumped fists with my partner as we began to roll. While I was worrying about the likes of Harry or Logan, my opponent was grunting with effort as he passed my legs into side control. His frame laid on top perpendicular to mine, pinning my back to the floor. It was a difficult position to escape from, but I somehow found that my flexibility came in handy during defense. I swayed back and forth, framing on his neck with my left wrist, while hipping my body outwards. I was back to a neutral standing position. Already, I felt my heart racing and my lungs cry for air. The other white belt tried not to show it, but his heart was beating with effort when he made contact with me. He asked to readjust his gi for several seconds, and I obliged. We returned to our scrambling. He would pass my guard more times than not, but to his frustration, I would escape every time. In one of my escapes, my knee slipped down and I found that I had ended up in the triangle. Keen on to what I was doing, the other white belt gazed warily at my movements. I didn't budge. There was barely a minute left. I began thinking about the next round and the partner I would choose. Harry would have finished triangulating his long legs while humming to his favorite song, and Logan would be threatening to tear the arm off by now. What if I switched? A triangle to an armbar? A jolt of static coursed from the tip of my spine to the very base. The hairs on my arms stood straight as needles from the adrenaline. Small bubbles rose and popped inside my head while my mind worked. This realization was one of my most satisfying thoughts. I'd spent hundreds of reps and days drilling each technique for even a faint chance at glory. I began to set up the triangle. Control one of the arms with an overhook. Easy enough, I tucked my partner's right arm into the crook of my elbow, making sure that there was no escape for him to pull through. Grab the other arm's sleeve. A harder step. My opponent circled his wrists out when I attempted to grab his sleeve. I began to step my left foot on my senior's hip as I prepared to armbar from guard instead of the triangle of the day. I used my other leg to chop away at his posture and throw the larger man off balance. I was in prime armbar territory. I had successfully faked him out with my breakthrough. Create space for your leg to pass over. Create a frame with your legs. I shifted. My partner clasped his hands together, resisting the armbar, but I adjusted and fed my leg back into position for the triangle. Pull the arm across to constrict on one side of the neck, throw the top leg's ankle under the pit of the other knee's pit, cut the angle and use the hamstrings to compression finish. One by one, each step had led me to this moment. I smelled blood inside my mind. Colors and chemicals mixed inside my brain as I clicked each move together. I hooked one of his legs with my arm and cinched the carotid arteries. I wished I had practiced more as the puzzle pieces fell in harmony. The man flailed weakly side to side. I compressed my legs with force and held my breath as I squeezed. One glorious second passed by the other until the golden moment he arrived. He tapped. Chapter 6. All I Want. I knocked on the door. No answer. The inside of the gym was decorated with a string of LED lights glowing softly as people laughed within. It was a week before Christmas. I would soon be back to school and training less frequently. As I peered through the back window of the gym, few people had arrived already. Some of the upper belts I recognized. It was a nice change of pace to see them outside of their usual colored belts and gis. Finally, a tall woman with olive skin noticed me through the window. She smiled. I whispered a quick thank you and hurried inside. I carried my food tray filled with Mother's pork dumplings tucked under my arm. There were stacks of chips, soda, and pastries on a table positioned against the wall where the portraits of the masters were. I set the tray down. While my parents still attended church and had their community, I hadn't been back since that day in June. Months had passed, but still burned at the thought of returning. I had a new group now. Faint sound of knuckles tapping the door rang behind me. As I walked to open it, the door shuddered from the impact of a second knock. This time it sounded more impatient. Peered out the door frame. Behind a tower of meat pies and cheese rolls in clear containers was Logan. He wore a forest green jacket, white joggers, and beat-up blue sneakers. Logan shivered as he waved off his mom in the parking lot. "Hey," I said. "Hey, yourself. Where should I put the food?" Logan muttered. I gestured toward the table and cleared some space for the boy to put down his delivery. The room was beginning to crowd as the clock struck 6 p.m. Members of the gym dressed in ugly Christmas sweaters and fuzzy socks trickled in. Oh, great. Soft holiday music bumped from the speakers as people danced to the smooth beat. "Hi, Julie, how are you doing?" called out. Harry wore a maroon sweater with small patches sewn all over. On its front, reindeer wrestled with each other while Mr. and Mrs. Claus bumped fists. He sipped from a red party cup filled to the brim with soda water. "I'm doing good, Harry. I brought some food for the rest of the party," I said as I looked towards the untouched dumplings. "Thanks, Julie. I won't be eating too much, but I'm glad you could make it. Good work for now," Harry replied. "Make sure to mingle. You're usually so quiet." With those parting words, Harry hurried off towards a member asking for help with the soda jugs. Someone had spilled on the mats. I sighed and hung near the snack table. I would much rather be training jujitsu right now instead of partying. I had yet to capture another submission since my previous training session. One moment felt like the best grappler in the world, and the next was back to ordinary Julie at school. What was missing? I continued to watch the motion of the crowd as I helped myself to a couple of my own dumplings. They were cold by now. "They're not bad." I turned in the direction of a voice again. Logan had appeared at my side. He took small bites of his food. Thanks. I'm glad you like them. He looked at the rest of his plate. Just salad, 3 dumplings, and 2 grapes. Not hungry? I teased. Starving. But next year will be filled with tournaments, and I can't afford to gain weight and lose progress, Logan said. I caught him glancing at the dumpling tray again. I smiled. I saw past his stoicism for a moment. He wasn't invincible. Just a kid chasing an impossible dream. Come on. I suddenly took him by the arm. Logan nearly dropped his food. Where are you taking me? Hostage situation, I dragged at his arm. You're dancing with me, and then you can go back to your junior salad. The boy in question groaned, but followed me to the open floor. He looked his age for once, shuffling awkwardly to the music. I couldn't help laugh for the first time in a while. You experience the jujitsu pop. It's a common thought processing milestone, Logan said. Having training work and sparring is what makes jujitsu addictive. Logan and I were sitting outside in the parking lot drinking iced tea from our cups. We were discussing several scenarios in training to see if we had any similarities. I decided to keep Logan company outside while the boy waited for his parents. Everyone? Harry had that too? That jujitsu cherry popping or whatever? Pop. He's different. Don't be fooled. Harry's crazy. Logan shuddered in recollection. He didn't touch a single pastry or treat the whole party. There's a tournament coming up at ADCC Trials. The man gets just as hungry as you and me. Makes weight every time. I sat in silence for a moment, still processing my thoughts. How many pops would it take for me to get good at this martial art? When would I be ready to fight against an untrained opponent reliably? I ever be ready? Finally, I broke the quiet. Logan, you want to be a big-time grappler. When do you know you're there? I mean, I can't even submit the other white belts reliably. What pushed you so hard from the beginning for a dream might not even happen? It might still happen, he said. He paused. I still remember how you tried to punch me the first time we sparred. I sputtered. I'm not shaming you for that mistake you made as a day one. You're not in this martial art to be an artist or an athlete. I can tell. Comment stung, and I felt my face heat with anger. Then what am I here for, Logan? Getting beat up every day by men double my size and triple my skill because it's fun? I asked with a flickering calm. Logan looked directly back at me. I am an athlete, raised from a jiu-jitsu family. He pointed. You, Julie, you're a fighter. I am a fighter. A chill bit me at my skin as I stared at the night sky, but for the first time in months, I felt warm. Chapter 7. The Blue Belt Trials. Julie, are you even listening to me? I heard about the recent test. I know it's a bit of a slump right now, but if you're not competing for a chance to advance because you feel sorry for yourself and you're not even listening, great, Harry said with a frown. Not ready yet, I replied. I swiveled in the office chair. I can live with having 3 stripes forever. My payments are on time each month too. I don't see what the big deal is. Harry exhaled slightly. I'm not going to force you to do anything you don't want to do. What I don't like is you coasting by without challenging yourself. Announcing taps and making jokes is not how we treat the other white belts. I bristled. That trial class guy was making fun of James before we rolled to impress me. At least I take care of myself more than that guy. Defending him is the hill you want to die on, Harry? This is not some personal attack on anyone. Harry's expression softened. I've seen you grow over the past few months in leaps and bounds. 8 times a week as a full-time student is a big plate for anyone. Losing or winning is not what this is all about. I know your jiu-jitsu will work next time you test. Cool. I grabbed my water bottle from the floor as I made my way out of the office. Harry continued. I liked your new escape you created from the bottom mount. Only someone with extreme hip mobility and training would be able to pull off the same move you did. It was just the other day. If this is about how I relied on my flexibility again, listen to the next part before you piss me off, Harry said sternly.
Your escape reminded me of one of the most basic lessons I have learned. While I was busy tending to my own ego, I lost focus. Not only our bodies, but our thoughts must not waste energy in order for us to perform our best. You understand, with enough time, you can be one of us. We accept you.
I stumbled and froze mid-door frame.
I know you have experienced disrespect where you came from, Julie. I know you push yourself hard and work your very best. Sometimes life happens. The Blue Belt trials are tomorrow. Just show up. Logan, Harry continued. Door slammed from the impact as I shut out Harry.
Shone my phone's flashlight through the driver's side window. Upon closer inspection, glass was shattered clean. Walked away from my car, glancing around cautiously in the darkness. Parking lot was devoid of activity. Light from a street lamp shined above my car. Fear and confusion mixed in my head. Who would do this to me? Why? I nearly yelped when a small shadow crossed the street lamp. Yellow light glinted off the pebbles of the leather. Across one of the sections was Spalding in print. Anna's baseball was here right now. Basketball was here right now. Bewilderment turned to numb bitterness. She was responsible for everything, and I would pay. No, she was responsible for everything. Pay. Angrily, I approached and struck the ball with the heel of my right foot. Once airborne, the ball caught on fire and made an arc back towards me. A thread of emerald fire followed. The spiderweb of brilliant green seared itself into the corners of my vision as I ducked. The comet grazed the top of my neck, shooting past me. My legs froze as I tried to stand and run away. The sound of a palm hitting leather rang out from behind me. I turned towards a figure taking long, slow steps toward me. The basketball spun in the right palm of the giant. The man wore a long-sleeved dress shirt. As the flaming ball rolled away from his fingers, molten flesh on his palm sizzled. 1,000 alarms went off in my brain. I stumbled back, my skin crawling. This wasn't real. No oxygen went to my head as I frantically gasped. Dark shadows lurched around me. I was all alone with no escape. Mr. On reached towards me with skin melting off his hand. I let out a scream. After checking my surroundings and body, I did not fall back asleep out of fear. A few hours.
1 out of 10 white belts are able to earn their blue belt,
Harry said.
I don't mean for that statistic to come off as discouraging. Unlike other martial arts, jiu-jitsu takes an especially long time to learn. I have invited all of you here because I know you are capable of being blue belts. Show me everything you have learned when I call you up. Feel free to warm up with light rolling, Julie. You're up first.
Watch as Harry's gi tightened around itself with a single tug from his wrist. Harry readjusted his tattered brown belt, then closed his eyes. He sat in open guard with his legs snaked outwards. Without looking, Harry used the hooks of his feet to break my posture. His lower limbs moved like arms, twisting from precise angles. Harry ducked his head towards me. He rhythmically rolled his entire torso over his shoulders, rotating around my front leg using his ankle as a guide. Using my ankle as a... Again. He rhythmically rolled his entire torso over my shoulder. Sorry. He rhythmically rolled his entire torso over his shoulders, rotating around my front leg using my ankle as a guide. I began to fall towards my back as the trained artist chained his moves. Harry grabbed the back of my gi's collar, repositioning my fall towards his chest, triangulating his legs around my waist and right arm, slithering his forearm under my chin. Harry had submitted me within less than 2 minutes. Gathered myself and readjusted my belt. Harry looked the same as when he had started the roll.
Julie?
I hesitated. I'm ready.
Harry shook his head, gesturing to sit down.
Curiously, I sat on the mat in front of Harry.
What do you think the martial arts are?
Harry asked. Meritocracy. Squinted in frustration. Winners work hard.
That's wishful thinking,
Harry replied as he searched his bag.
I need to demonstrate an important lesson before you end up hurting yourself.
I'm ready. When can I get my blue belt? I asked, regretting the question immediately. The entire group winced in embarrassment as Harry's face darkened.
Be careful what you wish for, Julie.
I haven't taught you everything about jujitsu yet, Harry said as he stood up. Harry tossed me a pair of gloves and boxing headgear. I stared at the equipment in my hands. I am ready to fight. Chapter 8. Ego. It was supposed to be just sparring. Harry and I were in the MMA cage with 8-ounce gloves barely covering the tops of our knuckles. When the timer went off, I shot for a takedown and lunged for Harry's lead leg. Harry sprawled, heavy and practiced. I continued to force my weight forward. I had him by the waist with a solid grip. Suddenly, my face plunged towards the floor. Harry's hips rotated through, countering my single leg with a judo throw. I slammed into the ground with a thud. Cage rattled as I sprung back up.
Too aggressive, Julie,
Harry warned, breathing calm.
You need to control that anger.
Control? I charged again. This time, I faked the takedown and swung with a wild overhand right. My fist crushed his jaw with venomous intent. Harry staggered, more surprised than hurt. Jim went quiet.
You trying to hurt me?
Harry's voice was tight. I heaved breaths of air. I said nothing. Harry pulled at his glove straps with his teeth, touching the side of his face with the back of his hand. Left eye had begun to swell.
This isn't what I taught you.
I don't have anything left to learn from you. You don't know anything about fighting. You just talk like you do. I spat. He paused for a long moment.
I believed in you,
Harry said quietly.
Maybe that was a mistake.
Words sank deeper than any choke. I grabbed my gear in silence and stormed out of the octagon. Julie! Logan called out. I brushed him off, left through the front door. I didn't look back. I snipped off the patches from my tattered blue gi. I unfollowed every contact for the gym and deleted the team group chat. I stopped checking messages on my phone. It was over. I didn't need that gym. I needed jujitsu. Found another gym within the next day, 20 minutes across town, tucked between a boxing center and a pharmacy. In a facility with newer mats, more classes, and coaches who didn't know my name. The moment I stepped in, I knew. This was a fresh slate. The fundamentals class was faster paced. The drills were efficient. And when I rolled, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Respect. After my first spar, one of the blue belts nodded.
You've trained before. Good base.
Felt proud. Day one at the new gym, I crushed a warm-up roll with a fresh white belt.
Nice base, another purple belt said. Where'd you train before?
I just smiled. I flung my gear into my bag with a practice motion and waved goodbye as I headed home. Boom. The blender pulsed as I made my evening smoothie. I could never stomach a full meal after training it, but I needed fuel. That's when I see him. Brother, it was almost like watching one of those white belts at the gym. He's not using the right techniques. The shots have no arc. Brother continued to bounce the basketball outside our garage. I could help him, coach him. I wrung out the remaining moisture in my hair. I hadn't talked to my sibling the entire time I was training jujitsu. I'd become so obsessed with my own progress that I shut down on my own relationships. Why do you extend help to strangers in a gym over your own family? I shook off my thoughts. I went outside, flipping on one sandal at a time while taking glances. Oh, footing is wrong. Kept walking towards the basketball court. I could hear the basketball bounce now, the harmonious melody of a ball hitting a surface. Ping, ping, ping. I folded my arms from a distance and leaned against the garage wall. Gooseneck! Ball clattered off the backboard, falling to the floor and rolling away.
What?
Brother answered, startled. You know, the gooseneck? I motioned to shoot an imaginary basketball. Kids these days. Here. Brother stood there and adjusted his glasses. He just stared quietly at the ball. Finally, he passed the ball to me. The leather had become smoother from bouncing on the rough concrete of our backyard. Still, I knew basketball like I knew joy. Inhale, breathe in, 90 degrees bent, and bam! I still got it, yes! Hoop's net swayed gently as if a breeze ran through it. I pumped my fist in the air. Here, give it again. They're passed again. This time, the shot fell short and bounced off the rim. To an experienced basketball player, the common rule of thumb is to keep your hands near your face while one reacts in time to catch the ball. Brother's glasses cracked as the basketball smacked him in the face from above. A single drop of blood fell to the floor. "I'm sorry, are you okay?" I cried. I went closer to see Brother clutching his face in low agony. Brother waved me off. He said nothing as we walked back inside. "He was just trying to get some practice to play with his friends. Don't worry about it too much, Julie. It's not that big of a cut," Mother reassured me. I was quieter than usual, just poking at my food during dinner. Mother continued. "I heard you signed up for a jiu-jitsu tournament. Remember to tap if you don't feel safe." "Yes, Mother." "And drive safely." "Yes, Mother." "Julie, look at me." I looked up from my plate. Oh, Mother, I was afraid to look directly at her out of shame. Her gaze was kind. "Be more careful. I am happy, though, that you are getting along. It was so lonely when you just shut us off and..." Mother's voice trailed. "Anyways, stay safe. I love you, Julie." "I love you too, Mom." All right. We got through 8 chapters. So, that's going to be where we cut it off, and I will continue this next week. Thank you for sharing this. I really like where this story is going. I really like where this story is going. Nothing in those last few chapters really stuck out at me as anything where I go, ooh, or, hey, this didn't sound right. No, we're seeing Julie's journey. And we're seeing where things are going. I have no doubt Harry's going to be present again. Logan is going to be present again. And of course, we know Mr. On is going to be present again. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I really enjoy doing this. I enjoy giving life to your work. I've said it before many, many times, but I think when you hear your own work read, I think when you hear your own work, it brings it to life. So, thank you. Thank you for sharing it with me. All right, it's time to find a raid. Let me see. Stretch, are you still around? Do you have anybody? Or Losi or Mango, do you guys have anybody you'd like to see me raid? I'm looking here if it says anybody I knew. Looking to see here. Let's see. Anybody I know? Nerdwitch. Don't know them. Becca Church is on. She's been on for like 3.5 hours, though. Let's see. Sometimes I raid Tizzy, but she's out of town. You mod for Becca? So Becca's been on for like 3.5 hours. How long do you think she'll be on? Because I'll raid her. Who's that? Ah, thanks. Da-da-da-da. What the heck? Let's raid Becca. Yeah, what's Becca doing today? Dang it, I just saw it. There she is. She's achievement hunting today. All right. We're going to raid Becca. So let me pop on that. She's looking very Star Trek-y today. Almost looks like a Star Trek uniform. All right. She's playing Happy's Humble Burger Farm. All right, then. Never heard of the game, but okay. Okay, gang, I'm going to raid out. Hopefully, I'll be back on Monday. If I don't kill my shoulder again over the weekend, I'll be back on Monday. I'll be playing a game. I don't know what yet. Might be Satisfactory. Might be Satisfactory or something else. I have no idea. An indie horror game? Okay.
I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope you can join me Monday. Thank you so much for sharing your stuff. It's a privilege to me to be able to read it. So thank you so much. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Again, have a great weekend. Everyone, we're off to a raid. Goodbye, guys.